going to be talking about research in school counseling for this module. This is an important topic for school counselors because it should help us to identify the most appropriate interventions and programs that we should be utilizing in the school setting. The other thing is that it can help us gather data as far as the effectiveness of the work that we're doing. So the first thing we want to talk about is school counseling an art or is it a science? Well, I think you can make a case for both. Whiston in 2007 identified school counseling as a science because she talked about how it gives us empirical evidence for the types of activities that we engage in on a day-to-day basis. She also recommended and suggested that if we really are going to transform the school counseling profession, it has to be determined based upon the knowledge that we have about what works in schools. From an accountability standpoint, it provides evidence of the effectiveness of the types of activities that we engage in with our students. And that's something that we need as we're adding to the aspect of accountability in the school counseling profession. So we talk about the art of school counseling. So the art part of it comes into a discussion of the types of skills that we use. So we're trained to facilitate change and the folks that we're working with. Um, the art is knowing which interventions to select in working with those individuals and maybe how to personalize some of those interventions for the population that we're serving. It's an art to be able to develop the positive relationships with the people that we work with, whether that be the students we're engaged with or the adults that are involved in the process as well. Leadership is an art, and we have to develop that leadership team to support change. And it's an art to create a culture of continuous improvement. And by collecting data, by analyzing that data and utilizing it to drive our future activities, that is where that continuous improvement culture comes from. So when we look at outcome or action research, you guys are going to have to do an action research project for this course. And so the benefits of doing that is it gives us good clinical information. Like we said before, it gives us good accountability information. It helps us to know whether what we're doing is producing the results that we're hoping to achieve. And then that kind of launches us into the work of selecting interventions and the activities that we're doing and looking at other research that's been done. Lambert in 1991, I know it's a long time ago, but it's still very pertinent, said that if we're not looking at the types of activities we're engaged in based upon outcome research, that we're really not practicing ethically, because we know that we need to be utilizing effective practices, and if we don't know if it's effective or not, it may not be ethical to utilize those interventions with the population we're serving. One of the things you want to do as a school counselor, first of all, is to be a good consumer of research. So to know where to look for information and to be able to look at research that has been done in the field of school counseling and to be able to know enough to know if this is good research. Sometimes it's hard to read through all that, and if you're not pretty good at statistics and research methods, you may not have the knowledge to read the research and determine if it's good research or not. And there are some that suggest that if we don't have good evidence that what we do has positive outcome with students and that we are we're focusing on student outcomes, that our jobs may be in jeopardy. I think that may be more true in the past than it is now. So where do you find your research? It's published in lots of different places, and you would have to really stay abreast of a lot of different publications to stay on top of it. One of the things that I would say is that through your professional develop or your professional organization and attendance at professional conferences, that's going to be one of the things that keeps you abreast on it. But when you're looking at research, there are a couple of places that kind of bring things together for you. One is qualitative reviews. So in that, the researcher has gone out and looked at a lot of research that has been done, and they're going to summarize those findings for you. The same thing happens with a meta-analysis. A meta-analytic review pulls together different research on similar topics and sees, are they having similar results? What are they saying about this? So, for example, if you were looking at a meta-analysis on the impact of guidance lessons, that somebody might pull together 10 or 12 or 20 or more different studies on guidance lessons and give you the summary of all of those. So this is an example of what a meta-analysis might have told us. So one of the things that's been looked at is which students benefit from school counseling interventions. Well, in doing this meta-analysis, the reviews were kind of mixed, but the research also suggested it was because it was hard to find a lot of research on particular interventions at particular levels. So in looking at it overall, it was looking at different types of interventions that were done with different levels of students. So that's probably why the findings were mixed as to whether it was effective or not. But what it does tell us is these are the students that are most likely to utilize school counseling services. Students from single parent homes, students who've been retained at one grade level at least one time, students who are underachievers, students who've been suspended, males, and African Americans. So if you look at that, you could probably think of one student who hits every one of those categories. And you may be able to think of, a lot of students who hit several of those categories. So what the outcome research tells us is that we don't have a clear indication of which students benefit the most. So another thing that was looked at was the effective methods for delivering guidance counseling programs. When you looked at guidance curriculum, there were mixed results. But what it did show was that elementary counselors were most likely to use curriculum that was related to a personal or affective domain. So that's going to be some of, goal setting, accepting responsibility, interacting with others in a positive manner, those types of things. There was research that suggested that there were really positive student outcomes for ninth graders, for counselors who led the units. And this is one of the things that is not so positive, but that counselors are using materials that are not well researched. I think part of that is because a lot of times we develop our own materials. And so when I know as a school counselor, I produced a lot of my own materials. So, there may not, unless you're doing the research on it, those materials obviously are not going to be well researched. Okay, so the next meta-analysis is, does a fully implemented school counseling program make a difference? Well, here's what students reported in the research, that for those schools that had a fully implemented counseling program, those students reported they had higher grades, they were better prepared for the future and felt their education was more relevant, that they had more college and career information available to them, and that those students reported having more positive relationships with their peers and with their teachers. The other areas were not that were found, not student reports, but overall looking at the research, that schools with with fully implemented school counseling programs have higher levels of engagement of students. They're more visible in the community. More than 70% of the counselor's time is spent in direct services, and that there is a reduction in non counseling related tasks. So that's pretty important there. The next one is, what are the effective methods for delivering a school counseling program? So this is looking at the different delivery systems. So if you look at individual student planning, there were a meta-analysis of 10 different studies suggested that individual student planning had made a statistically significant difference in student achievement. Middle school or junior high appears to be the most impacted group. It was very effective for career counseling. Obviously, if you're working with somebody individually, that's going to be a better way to implement career counseling if you're trying to do that in group. However, it also said that career counseling is the most neglected domain in school counseling programs. So in the area of responsive services, so responsive services are responding to some type of a problem. It's just exactly what it sounds like. It seems that elementary students seem to derive the most benefits. There were only 10 interventions that were researched at the middle school or junior high level. And of the 20 responsive services that were involved high school students, all produced positive outcomes. So that could be group counseling interventions. It could be individual interventions. It could be like peer programs. It could be all types of different things. Parent education, family counseling, or consultation. When we don't do research, what are the implications of not doing it? Well, we're most likely going to be less effective because we're not looking at what we're doing and determining if it's having the results we wanted. We may continue to engage in the types of activities that are not getting the results that we want to achieve with that. Our stakeholders may not know what we do. Our jobs are in jeopardy of becoming more focused on non-counseling related duties instead of focusing on the types of things that we should be doing. So let's talk a little bit about what action research is. It's a simple set of ideas and techniques that are a systematic reflection of your practice. It assumes that you have the power to meet the challenges of the counseling profession. It's a way that we continue to grow by utilizing our own experiences and making sense of what we're doing. One of the benefits of it is it takes us where we are, and then it allows us to improve our practice for as far out as we want to go. So it really is that scholar practitioner model of really being systematic about engaging in analyzing the work that we're doing to figure out if we're getting the results that we hope to get. So it's a way that we can improve our practice with systematic action. It's designed and conducted by practitioners who are using data you collect in your day-to-day work in order to improve the work that you're doing. It's also referred to as applied research because the person who's doing the research is actively involved in what you're in carrying it out. So if I were doing a research project on school counselors, and I was not like I went in as a researcher, I went into the schools, I designed things, and I asked school counselors, or I'm looking at the typical types of things that school counselors do. I'm not actively engaged in the day-to-day operations of that. So as applied research, you are involved in carrying out the work, and it's just simply looking at what you're doing every day. And it utilizes a combination of quantitative and qualitative methods. So when you're designing a study, the first thing you want to do is frame a good question. Now, we're going to be working on this through your discussion for this module that, what's the question that I want to answer? You want to avoid a yes or no question. So, a yes or no question might be something along the lines of, do students benefit from classroom guidance lessons? Okay. You want to avoid questions you already know the answer to. That's really not helping you to improve your practice if you not already know the answer. So when you develop that question, you want to write a first draft. So here's an example of a question. Why are kids so mean and nasty to each other? Well, that would be a hard thing to figure out. Are you going to be able to determine what the answer is? How do you take action to answer that question? So if you were, that may be what you want to know, but you want to make sure that your question has action in it. How can we help students develop a more respectful culture in our schools? So see the difference in those two questions. So then you want to create a timeline. Remember, you have 1 semester to complete this project that you're going to be doing. We're talking about this right here at the very beginning because I want you to have plenty of time to carry this out. And I'm going to tell you, if you procrastinate on this and you put this off until the end of the semester, you are going to have a poor project and your grade is going to reflect that. So as you're looking at your data analysis, you want to know, what evidence do I need to answer my question? What information do I have to access to that may provide that evidence, and do I need to generate more information? So let's pop back here to how can we help students develop a more respectful culture in our school? What data might you already have that helps you answer that question? What evidence do you need to answer that question? And in this one, you're probably going to have to generate some more information by carrying out some different activities. So once you get that part of the data developed and collected, you want to organize that. So you want to have at least 3 data points, and that allows you to triangulate. So triangulation, all that means is looking at something from 3 different points. Triangulation in research is actually, that word comes from actually an old term for how to navigation. I'm trying to think of that word from navigation. When ship captains were navigating, they triangulated by looking at different points, a certain star or where the moon is, or what they can see from the land to assess where they are. So we triangulate, that's where that term came from. So when you have the ability to triangulate your data, then it's helping you to come up with more reliable and valid responses in the end, or not responses, more reliable and valid conclusions in the end. So then you want to look at, how do you organize that data to support your analysis? So then when you analyze it, your data never speaks for itself. You can't just look at data and go, oh, look, this is what it means. You have to analyze that data in order to make sense of it. So when you do that, you're looking for patterns, you're looking at before and after information, look at what others have learned about the topic. If this is something that's already been researched, does your data concur with that, or does it contradict that? Then when you report your results, you want to describe the actions that you took, reflect on the evidence you collected, report the counts that you got, give the factual data and the patterns, examine how you can explain this, which in that you're going to draw. I'm going to correct this little PowerPoint right here while I'm going to see that. Okay, you're going to draw from prior research. You're going to revisit the assumptions you had at the beginning, formulate a trial explanation of why that means what it does, and then you're going to develop an argument with the evidence and claims for what you found. And then you're going to use that information to improve your practice. Does the evidence that you got support your claim? Would other people find your argument to be credible? And does it fit into the ongoing debates and conversations that are in the research or that you're having on your campus? What's unique about where you are and about how you went about this? Will others find your argument useful? And then how do you incorporate that into your practice? So these are your guiding activities that you're going to do. And I'm going to give you lots of information. You're going to read some articles, and I'm going to give you lots of information that are going to help you to flesh this out as you do your own research. And we'll be working together on an ongoing basis. As we go through the course, I'm going to build in some places where you're going to have to give me an update on what you're doing, because I don't want you to get far into this and then find out that you're not on the right track, and then that'll impact your final project. So we're going to build that in throughout the course, where we're going to have some touch points where you're going to give me an update on your research. Okay, and after you've done that, you begin the process again. You ask new questions, you ask better questions based upon your previous inquiry, and then this also supports that continuous improvement model. Okay, so now you've got some things in the module that you're going to read, some articles, and then we'll participate in a discussion where I want you to start talking about what type of research you might do on your campus for your project.